Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider for KSL Sports. Good to be with you guys on a Wednesday afternoon. Loaded show on this one. Going to talk about a number of different things. We're going to start with the Pro Bowl, NFL Pro Bowl. Few Utah guys showing out the NFL Pro Bowl. I don't know if you guys knew that the Pro Bowl went down on a Tuesday night, but apparently it does now. It goes down on a Tuesday night. So we'll talk about that. Garett Bolles, Dalton Kincaid, and Devin Lloyd representing as former Utah guys. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what am I going to talk about? Oh, you know what it is? It's National Signing Day. Who knew? You didn't. Man, almost just forgot it there. Yeah, National Signing Day today. Just, wow. The thunder has been completely stolen from what was once a great national holiday, was National Signing Day. This was a day I used to take off before I even started doing this as my job. I used to take this day off just to enjoy what was going on the recruiting trail. This was a fantastic day for many of us growing up the way it was, and now it's the early signing period, and even then, you know, it even that just isn't the same. So, yeah, but today is National Signing Day. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then, you know, we with that, Utah's transfer portal haul. I was reading some articles recently, and, you know, with Utah's transfer portal haul and what they lost, doing some homework on the experience they gained, the experience they lost. And I actually came away surprised at, you know, the amount of experience that Utah's bringing in. So going to run through that a little bit on this one, and then also going to preview tonight's Arizona State Utah basketball matchup. So let's get to it. Let's start here with the NFL Pro Bowl stuff. Obviously, with the Pro Bowl, it's not what it used to be. You know, many of us old heads grew up with this game being played in Honolulu, Hawaii, and this was used to be must-see TV. I remember the Pro Bowl, Sean Taylor, you know, going crazy, making big hits, watching Reggie White and all that. Like, it's definitely changed, but still, you know, this Pro Bowl, Utah had three guys representing the program, and Devin Lloyd, Garett Bolles, and Dalton Kincaid. Garett Bolles in particular, man, that guy stole the show. Obviously, like I'm saying, the Pro Bowl isn't what it used to be, but I think Garett Bolles went in with the mindset that he was going to make the most of this opportunity, and he did exactly that. He was a guy on the mic. He was a lineman catching passes. He was the entertainment for the Pro Bowl on Tuesday night. Just really cool. And I think this is also kind of cool where, you know, these are the last three first-round draft picks out of Utah. Dalton Kincaid selected by Buffalo in 2023, Devin Lloyd by Jacksonville in 2022, and then Garett Bolles selected by Denver in 2017. That's interesting because Utah, obviously, they've got two first-round picks projected in this year's NFL draft with Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. So pretty good track record there for Utah, having those first-rounders getting to the Pro Bowl. I would anticipate that both Fano and Lomu see their names in the Pro Bowl as well, if not even more. You know, the all-pro teams and all that sort of stuff. So really cool. You know, and again, the Pro Bowl isn't what it used to be, but it's still an honor. It's still a way for these guys to get recognized. And I think that's a big deal. To have these guys representing the program is such a valuable thing. It may not carry the same sort of weight that it used to, but still, it's an opportunity for these guys to be in front of the screen and to represent, you know, obviously themselves, their organizations, but also the University of Utah. So pretty cool for those guys to continue to have the success that they've had, and hopefully that continues into next season. Obviously, with Devin Lloyd, he's going to be entering free agency, and we'll see where he ends up. But he's going to be, obviously, he was one of the top defenders, regardless of position this season. He turned into just an absolute monster at linebacker, and I think he's in for a big payday. Dalton Kincaid, battling through injury all season long, continue to make plays for the Buffalo Bills. He's going to be a key piece to that Bills offense as they transition to Joe Brady as head coach, and then Garett Bolles just doing what he does at left tackle for the Denver Broncos. Me being a Chargers fan, having to watch the Chargers go up against him twice a year, keeping close tabs on him. He's just been as reliable as they come at left tackle, as good as they've come at left tackle. So awesome for those guys, and hopefully good things continue with the draft success this upcoming in a couple of months. This upcoming draft. So hopefully we'll see that for Spencer and Caleb coming up here soon. All right. Like I said, if you didn't know, today is National Signing Day, a holiday for many of us that followed Utah football religiously for 10 years ago. It's not what it used to be, the February signing day. It's it was historically the one day where every high school recruit made their commitment official. That was, it was basically a ritual, a cornerstone of the recruiting calendar was the first Wednesday of February for years and years. Like, this is the day that you looked forward to in football recruiting. This was a holiday for many of us. So, obviously we know what's led to this and what's stolen the thunder. The early signing period, being in December has taken a lot of the thunder from this first Wednesday in February. But, teams want to know what they've got before the mid-year point, and that obviously with the transfer portal window now being in January, even more so, it's important for programs to have their high school recruiting, finalized and finished before the transfer portal recruiting begins. So, I think it's interesting. I think we are watching, unfortunately, the death of the February National Signing Day. And it's really saying something. I think, the last big couple of commitments for Utah football specifically that came down to the February signing day, I think you have to go back all the way to 2019. Jordan Wilmore, Bam Olaseni, those were two guys that I remember vividly coming down to the wire. And obviously Bam Olaseni was a 4-star offensive tackle out of the JUCO ranks, out of Garden City Community College. He had Auburn, Iowa. He had some big programs involved with him, but he committed to Utah in large part due to Jim Harding simply knowing his name. And I remember Bam telling me that as that being the big reason, kind of the differentiator between Utah and the rest, was that Utah actually knew who he was as a prospect, and that was fascinating. And then obviously with Jordan Wilmore, that was fresh off of a great campaign of Zach Moss in 2018. Utah was pushing hard for Jordan Wilmore. That came down to Arizona State making a late push for Wilmore, but Utah was able to thwart them and hold on to their top spot and secure his commitment on that February signing day. And that was a big one for Utah, because if you remember, I think it was the year before, maybe the year before that, but Eno Benjamin, kind of a similar story where it was Utah and Arizona State, and obviously Eno Benjamin ended up committing to Arizona State late in the process. But yeah, those were probably the last two big February signing commitments for Utah. You got to go back 7 years, and it just kind of speaks again to what signing day is now. It is just kind of a reminder to look at the ratings, look at the rankings, and see where your class ended up. Obviously, Utah ended up top 40. And with the transfer portal now factored into things, that's just another layer to consider. And so that kind of gets me to some of my thoughts on the transfer portal. I was doing some research, I was reading the top 25 transfer portal rankings by The Athletic, who went about and ranked the top 25 classes, transfer portal classes this cycle. And as you would expect, LSU named number one in the country, with Lane Kiffin pulling in Sam Levitt, Jordan Seaton, and a handful of other top prospects. So no surprise there. Utah obviously also not included in the top 25, to the surprise of nobody. And I think it's interesting. They their rankings on a number of different things, experience, production, obviously accolades, the type of player that you brought in versus you lost. And I think that's where Utah is going to be hurt the most is, when you look at the outgoing list of players, there's only a handful that were really, truly difference makers. And obviously John Henry Daly kind of headlining that list as one of the top sack artists in college football this season. It's just going to be tough to replace that production and what he was able to do. Teo Johnson has a ton of snaps under his belt. Over 2,000 snaps. That's also going to be tough to replace. But I was actually surprised at the amount of snaps that Utah brought in terms of experience. And that's kind of what I want to focus on here. So, Utah had 20 outgoing players that left the program, which again, I think we were going into the transfer portal season expecting 30 to 40 players based on some of the conversations we were having with sources around the program. So 20 players enter the portal and obviously decide to leave. And the total amount of snaps lost to the transfer portal, I calculated it at 7,495 snaps. And again, Teo Johnson accounts for 2,093 of those snaps. So that is roughly almost a third of those, a little less than a third of that total snap count. And then you've got Smith Snowden, who accounts for 1,394 of those snaps as well. And so, the rest, when you look at that, that's almost half of the snaps that you lost. And, obviously with 18 other players that you got to account for, that's pretty, that's not a lot of snap counts everywhere else. But in terms of what Utah is bringing in, they did not bring in the same amount of players. They only brought in, 17 players. But the amount of snaps that they brought in, I think, is actually going to surprise people by my calculations. And this is the two JUCO guys that I'm counting in here, Nicholas Igwe and Earl Parker. Hard to find snap counts for those guys, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm just going to give them, a rough estimate number and play it on the safe side. I don't want to get greedy here. I'm going to credit them with 250 snaps a piece. They played, I think Igwe played 9 games. Parker played in 12 games. So I'm being pretty safe here with this snap count estimate of 250 snaps. But the amount of snaps that Utah is bringing in through the transfer portal is 8,276 snaps. So a lot of experience bringing in. Where does that experience come? Where does the bulk of that experience come? Obviously, with Utah in the secondary, you lose over 3,300 snaps to 2 players. That's pretty tough. You've got also, Jonalea Aya accounting for almost 700. You've got J.J. Buchanan a little over 550. Dallas Vakalahi 470. And this is career totals, right? Career totals for Jonah Dallas. That's surprisingly low. But again, so 7,495 snaps lost to the portal, 8,276 coming in from the portal, with fewer numbers coming in from the portal as well. You look at Cedric Jefferson, he is coming in with the most snaps under his belt with over 1,000 snaps, over 1,200 snaps played, almost 1,300, 1,276 to be specific. Good experience to add there. We've got Ethan Day with 918 snaps played. John Henry Daly, 597 total snaps played. So you're gaining experience there. Lucas Samsula, Jaire Moe, Jamal Wallace. Those guys are accounting for about 700 snaps combined. So not necessarily replacing the experience you lost in Leia and Vakalahi, but you're getting close. And obviously with the experience that Pupu Sepulona and Carson Kafusi gained this season, that's going to be a group that you're expecting progress from, improvement. That's going to be on your player development. And obviously with Morgan Scalley and that defensive staff, that they know how to develop defensive players and defensive linemen specifically. So that's going to be key for that group. And then at wide receiver, you bring in some guys that have some counts to them. You've got Braden Pagan with 869 total snaps under his belt. Kyrie Scholes at 736. So more than doubling what you lost in the transfer portal at wide receiver with J.J. Buchanan and Justin Stevenson, who didn't play this season but still had, over 400 snaps there. So feeling good about what you've got coming in. And then you've got Ricky Johnson, who also adds 161 snaps to that wide receiver room. So feeling pretty good about what Utah's done with, bringing in experience. And that's before even talking about the secondary, the amount of snap counts that they're bringing in at that group. You've got Elijah Reed with 951, James Chenault with 697. Again, Earl Parker, JUCO guy, he gets the default 250, but he probably played quite a bit more than that. And then Nicholas Brown, the nickel out of Lamar that Utah brought in, 43 snaps there. So pretty light experience there for him, but you really like what Utah's done with Reed and with Chenault there in that secondary. And then too, Steve Chavez Soto coming in just shy of 300 snaps. Noah Benny with 840 snaps. That'll be interesting to see what that's done for him in his game. He left a couple years ago, left the program to go to Weber State. What has that experience done for him? Is it going to, I think there's a lot of optimism that he's going to be able to come in and play a significant role for Utah, but to add that experience, that's a big thing. That's a big number to bring in 840 snaps with Noah Benny. So again, we'll see what this actually translates to this season, but this is one key element to Indiana's success under Curt Cignetti is looking for experience, looking for production. And obviously, with some of these guys, Ethan Day and John Henry Daly, there's that debate, there's that conversation to have, right? Obviously Ethan Day has played quite a bit more snaps than Henry Daly has, but Henry Daly has produced at an elite level. So what is that going to look like? And then at receiver, J.J. Buchanan, 553 snaps this year, looked really productive, looked really promising. Going to Braden Pagan and Kyrie Scholes, who have a significant amount of experience at receiver themselves, I'm interested to see what that actually does for this offense. I think, Buchanan was, I don't want to say like serviceable, makes it sound like he was not good, and that's not the case. But he was kind of stuck in between. He was stuck in between being an X receiver and a tight end, and I think he's optimized kind of being that hybrid F tight end where he can just be that sort of mismatch, big body receiver. I think at X receiver, you need a little bit more juice. And I think that's what Pagan brings. He's got good size at 6'3", 210 pounds. He's just got a little bit more twitchiness to him. And I think a better fit for that X receiver spot. So we'll see what these, what the guys going out, what the guys coming in, what that trade all looks like. But just in terms of experience being brought in, Utah went hard after guys with experience and guys with snap counts. I think that's going to lead to positive things. We've seen it, the impact that it can have in college football already. And I think Utah's wise to follow this kind of, idea and what they're trying to target in replacing what they lost in the transfer portal. So plenty more to come on Utah football. We'll start to take a look at the roster and project some of the pre-spring depth chart as well. But I just thought that was interesting, given the experience that Utah lost. They are bringing in quite a bit of experience, even though they're not bringing in as many players that entered the portal from Utah. So I think that's really significant. But enough there. Let's now preview Arizona State versus Utah tonight. Let's talk a little basketball. Utah coming into this one 9-12 and 1-7 in the Big 12. Arizona State is 11-11 with a 2-7 league record, and really just kind of fallen off a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Arizona State is led by Maurice Odom, a 6'2" guard, averaging over 17 points per game, also 6.5 assists per game. So he is the go-to scorer. He is the go-to playmaker. He is the guy. He is the engine. He is the offensive engine for Arizona State. So that makes it interesting, right? We know what Utah has. They've got Terrence Brown, who's top 10 in scoring at over 22 points per game. That is going to be a very interesting matchup. And look at what Arizona State has inside in Masamba Diop. He's a fantastic young talent, a 7-footer with athleticism. He averages 13.5 points per game, 2 blocks, and just under 6 rebounds per game. That's going to be a tough matchup given the size and length that he has and that he plays with and utilizes. But I think this is a matchup for James Okonkwo where his experience should benefit him here. And obviously with Utah, it's going to come down to who step up around the big three. Terrence Brown, Don McHenry, Keanu Doss. Can Seydou Traore continue to pick his spots a little bit wiser and a little bit better? He's had some really good moments where the first, I think, 4 or 5 minutes against Oklahoma State in that second half, he made plays on both ends of the floor. Got a block, got a steal, got a couple of rebounds, got out in transition, did a lot of good things. And I think him continuing to build on that would go a long way for Utah. You're going to need Kendall Saunders coming off the bench to knock down some shots. You're going to need that. You're going to need, Josh Hayes to, find ways to produce tonight, to be effective against Diop, right? To hold your ground. This is actually, Hayes is a tough one because, he's tall, but he's just so skinny. This is actually, in terms of physical matchups, this is one that he can actually kind of find some success maybe. He's not as athletic as Diop is, but given the size, he should be able to at least provide some decent minutes against him, matching up against him. So I think that's going to be key. Obviously, you're going to need the big three to continue to carry the load like they have. You're going to need Don McHenry to find ways to score. And just in terms of, Oklahoma State had a little bit more size in the front court. They were 6'5" across the board. Arizona State is not as big as Oklahoma State. Similar, though, to Utah, where they've got a couple guards, 6'3", 6'2". They're lean, they're athletic. So this is, in my opinion, this game is going to come down to simply who wants it more, who wants to defend, who wants to grind out possessions, who wants to move the ball better, who wants to stay committed to what they need to do, what they need to execute. That's what this game is going to come down to, in my opinion. So obviously with Utah and Alex Jensen, this is year one. You hope that the Utes come out with energy and continue to fight, continue to build. It's unfortunate that they took a step back against Oklahoma State because they had been on an upward trajectory. They had been showing progress. They had been making improvements. They were playing really fun, exciting basketball. Unfortunately, against Oklahoma State, they just took a step back and kind of, got back to some bad habits. And I think This is a game, this is a matchup where you have Arizona State, who started the season out great, but they've tailed off for a number of different reasons. Bobby Hurley is on his ninth life, and it's it's not looking good for Coach Hurley there either. So this is an important one for Utah. You got to protect your home court against the Sun Devils. This is a really important matchup. Hope to see the crowd show up again. It was great on Saturday night. Obviously, being a midweek game, it's going to be a little bit different, but hope the crowd shows up. Hopefully the must shows up. This game is a valuable one for Utah. Need this one in a lot of different ways. More to come on Utah basketball, specifically with recruiting. We're starting to have those conversations with folks about looking ahead to the offseason and that sort of thing. So there's going to be a lot more recruiting content coming out on Utah basketball. But this is an important one. Utah is slightly favored in this one. And again, as long as they play their game, as long as they show that they want it more and that they're willing to defend, and they can play a full 40-minute game, I think Utah finds a way to get this one done. So I'll go ahead. I'll shut up, put a bow on this thing, and call it an episode. So for myself, Steve Bartle, for the Utah Blockcast, signing off. We'll be back at it. I'm going to try to record an instant reaction show to tonight's game. See how that goes. But if not, you can expect a Friday episode from me as well. So go ahead. I'll shut up, like I said, and call it an episode.